It's chilly, y'all.
It is chilly.
It's colder than the Overlook Hotel out there.
Hey!
Cut to a gif of Jack in the maze. We are going to see Dr. Sleep.
Doctor Who?
Dr. Sleep.
He's that superhero, right? The Marvel one?
The Marvel one.
No.
I hear that it's a sequel to The Shining. Is that true?
It is.
All the stories are true?
It is. It's based on a book Stephen King wrote himself of the same name.
So, here's my thing. It's been several years since I've seen The Shining, but I really enjoyed The Shining. I know that we have someone in our car who's a big fan of The Shining. I have this question for you, Sam and Molly. Not saying it's going to be bad, not saying it's going to be good. I'm just saying that I don't really have any expectations or real drive or desire to see this movie.
Well, first of all, you clearly don't care about The Shining enough.
What I'm saying is this movie doesn't feel it's like aimed towards me. It feels like it's aimed towards you two. So, I don't know. Walk me through this. Why are you excited about Dr. Sleep, Sam?
I am excited because Mike Flanagan, the director, he has made a lot of horror things that I really like. He made Haunting of Hill House. He made Gerald's Game, and he made one of my personal favorites, which is Oculus. And I loved this book. I really, really, really loved it. I'm a huge fan of the book The Shining. I'm a huge Stephen King fan, and Dr. Sleep is one of the best books by him I've read.
I didn't get to finish the book. I started the book. The book is very good, but I'm here because I love The Shining. It's my favorite horror movie. I think historically speaking, The Shining did a lot for horror movies in general. Created a genre called natural horror. And I think it did a lot of stuff technically that hadn't been seen in movies before.
That's for sure.
That's definitely for sure.
So I think it just was a technical feat that makes it just a stunning film altogether, and I'm excited to see how they carry on the plot.
I've heard that you wrote a paper about The Shining.
I did. I wrote a 30-page paper about The Shining.
Colton's never read 30 pages in his life.
Exactly.
I just pictured all of us in a headmaze and Sam was the only one having fun.
Well, just crying.
Sam's at the Overlook Hotel is like, this place is pretty cool.
Yeah, look at that! So Molly, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Stephen King infamously hates The Shining.
Yes.
He hates the movie very, very much.
So that leads me to ask, like, do we really know, is Dr. Sleep a sequel to the book, or is it a sequel to the Stanley Kubrick film?
Well, it looked like visually it was a sequel to the film. I don't know, I guess, like, spoilers for something that's 40 years old. The big differences between the book and the movie is that the book is way more from the perspective of Danny. It's way more his kind of story. And in the book, Jack goes crazy just like he does, but Jack is, like, way more obviously possessed by the hotel in the book, and he's sort of struggling with not being a piece of shit. And then at the end of the book, instead of going out and chasing chasing Danny into the maze and just dying because he gets lost, he decides in like his last moment of like clarity of not being possessed or drunk, he burns down the hotel. And that's what happens in the book.
Danny being the main character of the book, and I mean Danny is it's him all grown up now in this movie. It's Ewan McGregor as an older version of Danny. He's, of course, the lead in this film and in the book, Dr. Sleep, right?
Yep, and he still has his Shining. He still sees stuff. Yep. I mean, I feel like it's in the trailer, but in the book, he ends up an alcoholic like his dad. That's when the movie kind of starts.
Well, my worry is that they're going to rely too heavily on trying to recreate shots from The Shining and not, like, make a new movie. Because, I mean, as technologically of a feat, I think that's a sentence, that The Shining was, trying to recreate, I don't want you to show me The Shining again. I want you to make me a good movie.
Right.
I read a good chunk of the book, and, like, I get that, like, they're going to have to call back to The Shining.
Right.
In thematic ways.
Yeah, to tell the story, but, like, if you rely too heavily on the original movie, it's
gonna feel like a crutch, and it's gonna lose a lot of impact. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll find out.
We'll see. Let's go see it.
Let's go find out now.
Let's go see a movie about. Dude, wait, no, that's Phantom of the Opera.
All right, y'all.
Dr.
Sleep. Molly, as our resident expert on The Shining, let's hit your thoughts first. What did you think of Dr. Sleep?
I think this is going to sound like a weird thought, but I feel like as a sequel to the movie The Shining, it didn't work. But as an adaptation of a Stephen King book, it did a pretty good job.
Yeah, because it's philosophically, I mean, it matched up the philosophy of both of Stephen King's books, The Shining and Dr. Sleep. Philosophically, it couldn't be more sort of like opposite from the book. This is the best movie of this length that could have existed of this book, but it was both half an hour too long and 8 hours too short. It was just a weird story to tell in that sort of length. It was weirdly structured. Like I sort of said before, like talking about how the book was kind of structured oddly, it's like you feel that. It's like it definitely was like the inciting incident. I mean, if you were looking at like just the basic screenplay rundown, the inciting incident happened like an hour and 10 minutes into that movie, which is like, if it's central to the book, it's fine, but like, because you're really like taking an emotional dive into someone, but in a movie, it's just like, boy, you feel that.
What did I think of Dr. Sleep? One of my problems with the movie is that like there's a lot of events in the movie without a lot actually happening. But despite all that, I was always here for Ewan McGregor and Abra. They were always really compelling. When they were on screen, I was like into the movie. Where the movie loses me is Rebecca Ferguson playing this like Indigo Girls groupie. So I end up feeling like we've got Ewan McGregor being followed around in this movie by like some Scooby-Doo gang, like just like this gang of like misfits who do not have their shit together, because they keep getting their asses kicked. Abra, who just whoops their ass every step of the way.
Yep.
And that just stole a lot of attention from the movie, and it doesn't help that I think that they all looked kind of goofy and wore their silly hats.
To me, the villains like knew they were evil. Just kind of, which is not how it is in the book.
No.
But like, they just kind of were like, I don't know, I guess maybe this is a spoiler, but they were killing one of their victims, and he was like, "Are you gonna hurt me?" And she was just like, "Yes." And to me, that was like that pivotal moment where they're like, they know they're bad.
She took glee in it. She was like, "Oh yeah."
Whereas good villains to me always think that they're doing the right thing in some way. That's what makes them complex. And so like that was my problem. It just became this like classic like black and white like good versus evil, where good triumphs over evil kind of situation. And to me, that wasn't the complexity and the nuance that was in the book was kind of lost.
Right.
Okay, so you guys, we're going to start talking spoilers for Doctor Strange. There's little things on the screen now.
And since this is coming out before the movie actually has fully come out, be especially aware of the spoilers.
Yes, the movie, on the date this video launches, the movie's not out yet, so be wary.
The ending, after having all these confrontations with Rose and her little like gang, him and Abra go driving up in the snow into the mountains to the Overlook Hotel to basically set a trap for
back where it all
Rose,
began.
the villain.
What we learned early in the film is that Danny is, after he left the Overlook, he was still haunted by all the ghosts. So he created a prison in his mind, and he was like just boxing up all the ghosts in their little boxes, little coffins.
I was hoping halfway through this movie, I was like, I want Danny to unleash the Overlook on this bitch. The only thing I kind of wish they had done a little better is when all of the ghosts were unleashed from his head. I feel like rather than being a pile and like toppling on to the villain, I kind of wish there had been a little more like releasing them one by one and letting them kind of come. Because that's what happened in The Shining, right? Like, they didn't... Maybe because they weren't as starving, right? Because that's the line, is like, they're nothing special, they're starving. Mm-hmm. And then they, like, pounce.
Yeah.
But I think what would have been really cool is to kind of watch them close in on her, rather than to have them just all appear at once.
That would have been cool. I like that.
That could have been, like, maybe, like, instead of wandering through the maze, just wandering through the hotel and, like, coming across these things.
Yeah, like,
slowly,
kind of
like,
unleashing them in the beginning when he first goes in, and then letting them
I could see that.
close in.
Earlier in the movie, he's talking to what's his name? Dick O'Halloran?
Dick Halloran.
Dick Halloran. He's talking to Dick Halloran in a scene earlier in the movie, and he's like, "Oh man, you should have seen the look on this ghost face when I got him. I just like boxed him all up. So he's clearly not really affected by them anymore.
Right.
So it would have been cool then to be like, oh, well, let's bring in the horror to Rose's character as she moves through this haunted house.
That's the thing that bothered me is Rose did not react to the hotel. And that was the worst scene of the whole movie is when they had the classic blood elevator and she just kind of scoffed
She
at
doesn't
it.
make like any reaction to it.
No.
So it's just like, why are you showing this? So my favorite scene of the whole movie was in this ending bit, and I thought this was the only scene I'll like probably remember from this movie and think is like really worth talking about, was the scene where he is just like Jack, where he's at the bar talking to like the bartender. They had an actor who does not necessarily look like Jack Nicholson at all, but they had his hair like Jack Nicholson. They did stuff with his eyebrows, but clearly you could tell this wasn't supposed to necessarily be Jack Nicholson. But what's sort of revealed is that the hotel is trying to convince him through like a hallucination or a haunting that this is his father. But Jack is just like, you're not my father. And the ghost is trying to get him to drink. That idea of that, of it being an approximation of his father that isn't quite actually his father, like some uncanny valley sort of thing, I thought was amazing. I think that idea is so interesting and so frightening when it comes to the idea of like hauntings and that sort of stuff. It was also a moment where the philosophy of the movie The Shining came up against the philosophy of the book, where it basically was just like the hotel is like, no, movie version of Jack is who Jack is. This is who I'm presenting. And he's like, no, like my father wasn't just that. Ending thoughts. Like, would you recommend this to a friend? I would recommend it. Even if you read the book and you really adore the book like me, I would still recommend it. It's not perfect, but it was satisfying. The ways it differed from the book at the end I thought were particularly satisfying and interesting, even if they don't always work. It didn't make any like stupid decisions that made me want to like throw things at the screen, which I get very sensitive about with adaptations of things I love. So I don't know. I thought I give this movie like a solid like C+.
I would definitely recommend people go see it. I think it was a ride, right? Like I thought it was just like a fun story to get on board with and go on for the trip. Do I think 30 years from now we're going to be talking about it like we still talk about The Shining? No, I don't. Do I think that as a sequel to The Shining it worked? No, I don't. Do I think as an adaptation of a Stephen King book? I mean, yeah, it did a pretty good job. I think Stephen King would be a lot happier with this than he would the adaptation of The Shining.
Definitely.
Like Kubrick did.
But overall, I mean, I liked Ewan McGregor a lot. I liked the chemistry he had with Abra. I liked the girl who played Abra a lot. All that stuff really worked for me, and the only time I was really taken out of it was, I think, just by sort of a lackluster sort of villain force. But I was generally pretty into it. I was enjoying myself. I was enjoying it. I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of good cinematography in that movie. But yeah, I mean, comparing it to like The Shining though, it's like, yeah, it's probably not going to stand the test of time. All right, well, let's go see movies again.
Go see movies.
Do it.
Go see it and then go see Parasite.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
See Parasite.